On October 2, 1986, just a few months after the Chernobyl disaster, something unusual happened during the cleanup efforts. While they were containing the dangerous emissions of lethal radiation into the environment, a Mi-8 helicopter crashed directly into the newly destroyed and extremely radioactive Reactor 4 of Chernobyl. In the home box office series Chernobyl, we see this event depicted in a very graphic way. However, there are quite a few errors and changes to the real story that were made to add a bit more drama. Even the date of the accident given in the series is completely false. In fact, it's off by a few months. All of this motivated me to make this video where we'll talk about the real story of the 4 men who fell into Chernobyl and their horrible fates. We will accurately portray the events before, during, and after the fall. So you'd better grab a snack, get comfortable, and welcome to Guns Club. The pilot commanding the aircraft was Vladimir Konstantinov Vorobyov at the time of the event. He was 30 years old, a veteran at flying helicopters, and had served in Afghanistan, taking part in dozens of missions of various kinds. He had evaded death numerous times. Incredibly, in that conflict, he survived being shot down. In this one, he broke his leg and got a concussion. After the crash landing, he managed to get out of the burning helicopter wreckage and got himself to safety. This earned him the Order of the Red Star Medal. After this shoot-down, Vorobyov would be sent home, and after a few months, he was ready to return to combat. In September of '86, months after the Chernobyl disaster, despite having 2 children, he decided it was better to join the efforts to fight the radiation in Chernobyl, in the way he knew best. Flying helicopters, Vorobyev was assigned a navigator. Lieutenant Alexander Yunkin, who had also served in Afghanistan, had been sent home to recover from a non-combat-related illness. When he was ready to return to Afghanistan, he decided instead to join the Chernobyl efforts, which he felt were more imperative for the country. Yunkin had a 1-year-old daughter and a son on the way. But despite all this, he also didn't hesitate to serve his nation. Soon after, a flight engineer joined them, Leonid Kristich. Kristich had also returned from Afghanistan. His helicopter had been damaged by enemy machine guns. The bullets pierced the fuel tank. Impressively, Kristich covered as many holes as he could with his fingers so the fuel wouldn't leak out, and thanks to him, all his comrades made it home. Likewise, the crew of Kopodos was ready for the cleanup missions in Chernobyl. The mission assigned to them was simple: to fly over the reactor along with other helicopters, and to pour a whitish glue-like liquid into the exposed reactor in order to contain the radiation that was being released into the environment. It wasn't an easy job. The helicopters were very likely to fail due to the radiation, so it was an extremely risky task. And if they fell in there, no one was going to rescue them. The day before the collapse, on October 1st, Vorobyov sent many letters to his relatives, including a letter with a gold wedding ring for his wife, maybe proposing marriage to her. And in many of the letters, he mentioned having a very bad feeling about the mission. That day, considering that the cargo was going to be suspended in 4-ton hoppers, the base assigned them another crew member, Nikolai Gashchuk. His job was precisely suspended logistics cargo. He was the perfect man to handle the huge and heavy glue hoppers. At 4 a.m. on October 2nd, the day of the fall, they reviewed the plan and prepared for the mission. The helicopter Kopa 1, led by Lieutenant Vyacheslav Zero King, would drop sand on the reactor, while the helicopter Kopa 2, commanded by Vorobyev, would drop the glue with Boro. And likewise all day long until they contained as much radiation as possible. At 6 o'clock, ante meridium, the 2 helicopters took off, reaching the plant within 20 minutes. On paper, the job was simple, but when the pilots arrived at the plant, they noticed something. There were crane cables hanging in too close to the unloading area. They were marked with flags, however, some of them in particular had hooks. At first, it didn't seem like a problem, but the job ended up taking all day. and as the sun set in the west, the flags became less and less visible. The disaster would begin at 5 o'clock. The workers who were working at the plant had finished for the day. Then they stayed a few more minutes to watch the helicopters drop sand and glue onto the reactor. It was quite a sight to see the helicopters at work. A filmmaker, Viktor Grebenyuk, who had been called in to film shots of the workers during the cleanup, happened to see Vorobyov's helicopter, the Kopa-2, so he started filming. Without knowing it, he was about to capture an incredible event in the history of the Soviet Union. In the afternoon, the sun made it hard to see the cables, so it was a headache to get close to the core. In the recording, we can see how Sorokin's Copter 1 successfully drops the sand into the reactor, then dodges the cables and makes way for Vorobyov's Copter 2. When he got closer, the sunlight blinded him so they couldn't see the cables clearly. Vorobyov dropped the load, but he miscalculated where to stop and the propeller blades hit the cables. These were heavy-gauge cables designed to support tons of weight, so the helicopter blades broke on contact. The helicopter lost its lift, spun in the air, and fell 100 meters inside the complex. 5 meters from a turbine room. It almost caused another uncontrollable disaster. But luckily, nothing happened. When the incident was reported, all helicopters were ordered to return to base to regroup, including the Kopa, one that was accompanying Vorobyov's. Sorokin had to leave helplessly, unable to help his friends, trapped inside the most dangerous place in the world. At that moment, they didn't know it, but all of them had died from the fall, and those who hadn't died instantly suffered agonizing deaths from radiation exposure. A few hours later, at 12 ante meridiem, Sorokin would come with a Kopa helicopter to recover the bodies of his companions. The Geiger counters showed that the dose received by the crew of Vorobyov's helicopter was dozens of times that a human could withstand. They were taken to Kiev, where they would receive the required funeral services. Vorobyov, Junkin, Kristik, and Gashuk would receive the Order of the Red Star Medal. Everyone who worked that day and found out what happened was forced not to say anything about what had occurred. All of this would not be known until 1990, since the government wanted to cover up any information indicating that the cleanup work was problematic in 1990. On the runway where Vorobyov's helicopter took off, a plaque was placed to commemorate what happened. The crew members of Kopa-2 are remembered as the Angels of Chernobyl for their important work in cleaning the reactor, and to this day they are remembered with great respect. Thank you.